Have you ever been completely ready to leave your house, hand on the door, and then turned around just because your cat looked at you? Not because you forgot anything, just because of that look they gave you. Maybe you say goodbye to them more than once before you leave. Maybe you leave the TV on because you feel bad leaving them in silence. Maybe you've sat in your car outside your house, checking your phone camera to see what they're doing, and when you saw them walk over to the spot where you were sitting and just stop there, you felt it. That weird heavy feeling that you did something wrong. Most of us tell ourselves it's just because we love our cats so much, that we're caring people, that this is what good pet owners do. But here's the thing, that explanation isn't the whole truth. And once you understand what's really going on, you're going to see yourself very differently. Because that guilt you feel when you leave, it's not really about your cat. It never was. It's about something much older. Something that was already inside you long before your cat came along. Your cat just gave it a place to finally show up. So let's talk about what's actually going on. First, your cat is probably fine. I know that sounds too simple, but hear me out, because this part matters. A study from Oregon State University found that most cats, especially ones who grew up feeling safe with their owners, don't fall apart when you leave. They're not sitting by the door devastated. They're probably walking over to a sunny spot on the floor, checking out a noise outside, or just napping. They move on pretty quickly. So, if your cat is actually okay, why do you feel so bad? Psychologists have a name for what's happening. It's called the emotional responsibility illusion. It means you're taking your own feelings, your discomfort, your guilt, your worry, and putting them onto your cat. You imagine your cat is feeling what you are feeling, and then you feel terrible for causing it. But those feelings are mostly happening inside you, not inside them. You're not a bad person for feeling this. It just means your heart is big enough to feel pain on behalf of someone else, even when that someone else is totally fine on the couch. The real question is, why are you the one hurting when you leave? Here's something worth thinking about. When you're home with your cat, who are you? Think about it honestly. You're probably quieter, more relaxed. You talk to them without worrying how you sound. You move slower. You sit in a comfortable silence that you don't really allow yourself anywhere else. In a lot of ways, you're the most real, most unguarded version of yourself when you're home with them. And when you leave, you're not just leaving the cat. You're leaving that version of yourself behind too. Have you noticed that the guilt almost disappears the moment you walk back through the door? Not after you check that the cat is okay. The second you're home. Before you even see them. That's a clue. A British psychologist named John Bowlby spent his life studying how humans form bonds and feel safe. He found that people don't just feel safe alone, they feel safe in relationship, through connection. And when something or someone that makes us feel safe isn't around, our whole system gets unsettled. For a lot of cat owners, especially people who grew up in homes where things felt unpredictable or emotionally complicated, the home with their cat has become the one place where they can fully breathe. Where they don't have to be on, where they don't have to perform being okay. So when you leave, it's not just a normal goodbye. Your whole nervous system notices that something safe is no longer around. And it doesn't like it. You're not being dramatic. Your body is just doing exactly what it was designed to do. And it's telling you something true about where your sense of safety lives. Now here's the part that blew my mind when I first learned it. And I think it'll do the same for you. When you're near your cat, your brain releases a chemical called oxytocin. You might have heard it called the bonding hormone. It's the same thing that happens when you hug someone you love, or when a parent holds their baby. Researchers confirmed that simply being around a cat, touching them, making eye contact with them, hearing them purr, raises your oxytocin levels measurably. Your brain chemistry actually changes. And here's the important part. Oxytocin and your stress hormone, cortisol, work against each other. When one goes up, the other goes down. So when you're with your cat, your stress naturally drops. But when you leave, your oxytocin drops. And cortisol, the stress hormone, rises back up to fill the space. This happens fast, sometimes within just a few minutes. Your brain then looks for a reason to explain this sudden uncomfortable feeling, and the closest thing it finds is, I left my cat. I must feel guilty about that. But the guilt isn't the cause. It's just the story your brain attached to a physical feeling that was already happening. This isn't weakness. This isn't you being too sensitive or too attached. This is biology. Your brain formed a real, measurable chemical bond with your cat. And when that bond is briefly interrupted, your body notices. That feeling at the door? It's not a character flaw. It's literally what love looks like inside a nervous system. Now let's go a little deeper, because this is where it gets personal. Have you ever noticed that you don't feel this way about everything you care about? You don't feel guilty turning off a lamp. You don't lie awake worrying about your houseplant being lonely. The guilt is very specifically about your cat. That specificity is telling you something. Think about relationships in your life where you felt responsible for how another person felt, where you changed your behaviour to keep the peace, where leaving, even for totally normal, legitimate reasons, felt like you were somehow letting someone down, where love felt like something you had to constantly earn and prove. For a lot of people, that kind of relationship existed long before any cat was in the picture. Psychologists call it anxious attachment. It develops early in life, usually when the people caring for you were loving, but not always consistent. Sometimes they were fully present, sometimes they weren't. And without understanding why, you learned that love is real but fragile, that you need to stay alert, that if you stop watching, stop showing up, stop proving you care, something important might break. One of the ways this shows up in adult life is through something called hypervigilant caregiving, which basically means you work so hard to protect the people, or animals, you love from feeling bad, that you forget to ask whether you are okay. Your cat didn't cause this pattern, but your cat became the relationship where it finally felt safe enough to show up. Because your cat will never punish you for caring too much. Your cat will never use your love against you. Your cat will never leave you for being too attentive. So the part of you that learned that love means guilt, love means constant presence, love means always putting yourself second, that part found a home with your cat. Because with your cat, it finally felt safe to feel all of it. Someone once told me they'd spent years feeling like they were too much in relationships, too worried, too apologetic, too focused on whether the other person was okay. They thought something was wrong with them. And then they realised that the guilt they felt leaving their cat was the same pattern, just finally somewhere safe enough to be felt. They said that was the first time they stopped thinking they were broken. They were just shaped by something real. And now for the part I really want you to think about. There's a specific behaviour that people who feel this guilt almost always do. It's not just the guilt itself, it's what happens right before they leave. The extra goodbye, the lingering at the door, the quiet "I'll be back soon, okay? I promise," said to an animal who has no concept of how long an hour is, who isn't tracking time, who is going to be genuinely fine. But you say it anyway. And if you're being really honest, it's not entirely for them. You're asking for permission to leave, permission to have a life outside of this relationship, permission to go without feeling like you abandoned someone. At some point, probably a long time ago, you needed that permission from a person. You needed someone to say, it's okay that you have needs. It's okay that you have a life. Your love doesn't have to be proven by never leaving. And either that message was never given to you clearly, or you heard it so rarely that you stopped believing it. So now you look for it at the front door, from a cat who doesn't even understand the question. Psychologists describe this as something called the permission wound, the deep, often unconscious belief that your freedom, your independence, your choice to take up space in the world needs to be constantly justified. That having a life outside of a relationship is something you have to apologise for. Your cat didn't create this. Your cat is just the relationship where it became visible. Because with your cat, the guilt feels safer. It costs less to look at. It won't blow anything up to admit it's there. But the wound itself, It came from somewhere human. A woman once shared that she spent years telling herself her guilt was just proof of how deeply she loved her cat. "I just love him that much," she kept saying. And then one day something clicked, and she sat very still for a long time. And then she wrote, "The guilt was never about the cat. The cat was just the first relationship where I wasn't afraid to feel it." She said she cried, not from sadness, from finally having a name for something she'd been carrying her whole life without knowing what it was. So here's what I want you to take away from all of this. You are not a bad owner. You are not too attached. You are not being dramatic or irrational. You are a person who learned, somewhere along the way, that love and guilt come together. That being a person with a life, with obligations, with needs, with places to be, is something you have to earn forgiveness for. And your cat, without knowing any of this, became the one relationship where all of that was finally safe enough to feel. The psychologist Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You've been calling it loving your cat too much. But now you know what it actually is, and that changes things. The next time you feel that pull at the door, don't push it away, but don't drown in it either. Just get curious. Ask yourself, what am I really asking permission for right now? And from whom? The answer won't be your cat's name." And that question, that honest, quiet question, is the beginning of understanding yourself in a way that goes so much further than any goodbye at a front door.